If you are thinking about moving to the Dominican Republic, this is the video for you. I've been living in the Dominican Republic for 13 years, and I'm writing a book about my experiences about living in the Dominican Republic, which should be published at the beginning of April 2023. Number one, understand the visa requirements. If you plan to move abroad and move in the Dominican Republic more than visiting, you can get a tourist visa for 30 days, but you have to extend it if you want to stay longer. So understand the visa requirements. Go to the Department of Home Affairs, find out about immigration, contact the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Okay. Number two, if you're going to work, find out about your eligibility. You need to know if you can work, how long you can work, what are the taxes. Number three, create a budget. That is hugely important. You'd be surprised how many people leave the country because of costs. Number four, search for housing. This is a tricky one. You want to stay in a place whereby it fits your lifestyle. If you're a beach person, if you're a party person, if you don't like a lot of noise, and I would say you want to go by those places at night. You want to see how the noise level is if you don't want to hear noise. They have houses right on top of discotheques here, so you want to consider that. Number five, discover your transportation options. Once you know where you're going to live, you need to know how you're going to get around. You need to know how close the grocery stores are, the doctors, schools, etc. Number six, you want to apply for health care. You want to make sure you have insurance. You don't want to be somewhere and need a serious problem comes up and you're stuck in the hospital because you can't pay. So keep that in mind. Make sure you know all the travel regulations, which is number seven, vaccine passports and things of that nature. Number eight, make sure you close all of your utility accounts before leaving. Make sure you don't get charged extra for certain things as a result of you leaving. Number nine, unlock your telephone. You have to have a telephone that you might want to use as a local SIM card. And at the same time, you want to know how much your calls may be when you call the United States if you bring your phone. If you bring your phone and you don't have an agreement with a carrier here, if your company doesn't have an agreement with a carrier in this country, you could be charged a lot of money. So you want to make sure you get the important things is in reference to your telephone done. Number 10, I would even bring some things that remind me of home. Pictures, family members. It may be it can make a big difference when you're just beginning to settle in. And you need to know where you're going to stay, which is number 11. Kind of talked about that. You want to get out, you want to see things, you want to see how the neighborhood is. Number 12, get connected with the embassy. You want to make sure they know where you're at, and you want to be in contact. You want to have a contact person or somebody you can call when you're overseas. The laws are different. Everything works. Lots of things work different, and you may even lose your passport. So it's a good idea to get with the embassy and get connected to them. It's also a good idea to have a bank account. Yeah, there are different requirements for different banks, and you want to make sure you have a bank account. Now, I'm all the way at 15. If you are in the certain cities offer certain attributes, Puerto Plata, Santo Domingo, Punta Cana, Santiago, or you may even want to live in the country. So finding where you're going to settle is hugely important. Safety, in my opinion, which is 16, is the number one thing people should be concerned about. Number 17, I would not look at houses on YouTube. I would actually physically get out, see those houses, and like I said, you want to see those houses on the weekend. You want to see those houses at night. Number 18, it might be best when you do decide to go to any country to live to rent an Airbnb. Stay there for 30 days. See the feel of the country before just packing up and moving. And if you're just on a vacation, so to speak, you can get a feel of the country. Number 10, number 20, you have to make sure in the Dominican Republic that all of your paperwork and everything that you have is legit. There are a lot of scams here when it comes to real estate. So you have to make sure that person is the real owner. And that's going to require you to get with someone who is local, who speaks perfect English, that you may trust. Now, that can be tricky, but that is really important if you're going to buy in the Dominican Republic. You want to get with somebody that you trust and go in that direction. It might not even be a bad idea, which is 21. Take another person with you as a co-signer. It goes a lot smoother. Take a native person with you. Have some friends that knows what's going on. There's an old saying here, have you got scammed yet? You may have to have proof of income, bank statements, and many times people will investigate you, so you need to make sure all your ducks are in the row. Now, as far as deposits, just 22, someone will say, I know where a house is, and they'll just take you to the house, and then they want to cut. And sometimes that's a month's rent just because they knew somebody. And oh, let me show you this house. Okay, so many times they want a month's. If your rent is $1,000, they're looking for $1,000. I mean, it varies now. It varies, but be careful with that. Realtors or whoever want their cut. In some places, like Santo Domingo, you may be required to pay 6 months rent ahead of time in Santo Domingo. And I would suggest never pay 6 months, a year ahead of time. There's people who've been caught in situations whereby they paid all this rent, something breaks, and the person doesn't want to fix it because they have all the money up front. You also want to check, which is 24, if the place actually has a water heater. A lot of places to rent here do not have a hot water heater because a lot of Dominicans don't take hot showers. Americans do. You want to know if you have a water tank or if you have a cisterna or a Tanaka, you want to know these things. And a cisterna is just like a water on site. You know, the sewage system here is not the greatest, and so many times, sometimes water will have to be brought in. So you kind of want to know the system that you're involved in. And sometimes, like those tanks that sit on top of the house, that's where you get your water from. They have to be filled. There's some places, this is why you want to talk to neighbors. Sometimes they run out of water, so you want to know all these things. You also want to know something, how much are maintenance fees. You may have to pay rent, and the realtor may not tell you up front how much the maintenance fees are per month. There's some maintenance fees that are a couple of dollars, and there's some maintenance fees that are expensive. You Number 27, you always want to be able to have people who can fix things. Um, you want to have a list of people who you can trust, who has a good reputation, and can fix things. I'm telling you now that in the Dominican Republic, some of these guys are coming to your homes. Sometimes they're not as trustworthy as you want them to be. So, that's another thing. When somebody comes in, it's not a bad idea to pick stuff up. And people don't see anything. That's a big problem here. Now, when you go into an apartment and it has a pool, it could be good or bad. Because if, say for instance, if you live across the street from a pool in an apartment complex, people here on Sundays, and they love to play that music loud, and you know so you it could go for you and it could work against you if noise and music doesn't bother you, because on Sundays and vacation days, people will be in those pools a lot of times, and many times they're in the pools with glass, like beer and things like that. So you kind of have to be careful around the pools and watch out for glass. I'm already at number 30. Many houses are just very close together. You want to know also if there are one or two parking spaces. Usually there's no more than two parking spaces. You want to see if you just have enough room. The parking spaces are so small. So that's a typical Dominican apartment complex. You want to see if it's lighted. How far do you have to walk? Is it where you park? Is it gated? You always have to be concerned with gates and bars and things here for the most part. In most places, people have bars. I would not really trust in some of the bigger cities parking outside and then walking into, you just, it's kind of like I just wouldn't. I'd want to park somewhere where I can go inside a gate. Try if it were me, I would try to get an apartment on the second, third, fourth, fifth floor, because it's just a little bit harder for people to break into your house than it is if you were on the first. In many neighborhoods, especially apartments, these little stores will deliver for you. So you want to get their numbers and, everything from water to whatever's in a convenience store, you can get it delivered. Number 35, you want to be very conscientious about traffic and noise. And like I said, if it doesn't bother you, then it's not an issue. But if it does, you want to be conscious of how close you are to the street, how close you are to living next to people, because there's a big disregard for noise and music at night. People have to get up and work in the morning, and the neighbor next door will be playing music loud, so you got to keep that in mind. Now, furniture furniture can be expensive. I've always heard that even in the United States, furniture is so overpriced. But I don't know. It's just I would say that it can be expensive. So you want to weigh how much furniture costs here versus shipping. Now, number 37, some of the sewage systems aren't that great. So there are some places where you cannot flush paper down the toilet. You have to use a little trash can somewhere in the bathroom. So you have to keep that in mind. I'd rather be in a place where the sewage system was good, where I could do that. And central air conditioning units, you may you may even have to buy a tank to go on top of the house as far as your water. You may have to buy a water heater. You may have to buy. You're more than likely, if you rent an apartment and it's, you're gonna have to more than likely buy an air conditioner. Now, sometimes you can find houses with air conditioners, and the air conditioners are not the window units. They're the split AC units that go on the wall. They certainly use a lot less electricity than a central unit, but you have to do that for every room, whatever room you want to keep cool. You don't have to concern yourself with heaters. There are many people here who've never had to use a heater in their entire life. The temperature just doesn't change all that much in the Dominican Republic. When you rent a home, many times you're going to be required to paint that house before you leave. And most people kind of spot paint the area as they match the colors up. But everything that you've tacked into the wall, they want all that done before you leave. Now, getting things shipped over is is can be important, because like electronics and other items can be expensive here. There are companies like BM Cargo, CPS, different companies that basically will ship your stuff to Miami or Fort Lauderdale or somewhere, or New York, wherever, and then they'll ship it on over to the Dominican Republic. But there's an aduana fee, and there's also um, you have to pay the company. So you have to pay the government. You have to pay the customs, and then you're gonna also have to pay the company for shipping it. For instance, to give you an idea, if you sent one letter with a stamp on it, I think the minimum the company that I do use is like 300 pesos, about $5 or something, $6, give or take. So it's expensive to ship things, and it goes by weight. So if it's a lot, I remember shipping a television once from Walmart, and it was like $300 to get it, which was almost, at the time, was expensive. And so you have to keep that in mind. Now, your cost of living is very subjective. You could survive here on $300 to $500 a month. But I think for how most people live in the United States, it's going to be, maybe $500 to $1,000 a month to just be comfortable. And if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the comment section and I will respond. I'm going to leave some links in the comment section for different markets, different newspapers, different like classifieds is what I'm getting at. Have a nice day and thank you for listening.